This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to reflect and analyze the topic of demonstrations, protests and strikes and other forms of that people try to fight power, but is becoming very ineffective. And in my opinion, this needs a reflection. Of course, it's not only me that is going. This is why does it is so ineffective? Because we have been so atomized, and individualism is so deep ingrained on our subconscious that we already believe that it is useless, and it is useless because behind the demonstrations, protests and strikes needs to be an organization, needs to be movements, organizations, needs to be organized and integrated in a way that we know what we are fighting for. We can. It's not possible to change anything unless it is important to identify the problems. It is important to identify the roots of the problems, to frame it in a proper way, in order to know what are we doing, why are we demonstrating, what's the purpose, what's the goal of the demonstration, the protest or the strike, but also what kind of change do we want to bring. We have to go to the roots of the problems to understand them, and then we need to discuss to really, and that's why organizations and strong organizations and movement, national and international, this needs to be a transnational organizations, that there is the need to build a real international movement, and people need to be conscious that they can change, that it's possible, that it is important to us to organize and to know, and the organization is because we need to know what do we want. The point of understanding the roots of a problem is to know, it's to diagnose the problem, is to come up with a remedy, is to come up with a solution for that problem. That is true for every kind of, and it doesn't matter what kind of problem, political, economic, civilizational, it doesn't matter. So it's as crucial as identifying the real roots of the problem, the real causes. It is also crucial to design the right solutions. And the right solutions need to be a large movement, international movement, that wants what kind of civilization should we have? Should we build? What kind of laws and institutions, national and international, should we have in order to build an alternative to the civilizational paradigm we have now? I mean, it's old one. This is we live in a civilization based on imperialism. This should be obvious for every one of us. It's not just, it is not speculation. This civilization that is kind of ending now, but is not really ending, and that is the problem. It's just mutating into even something probably worse, because we are mutating into a techno-fascist, still imperialistic, but techno-fascist civilization. So we should be. That's why. In order, it's nothing wrong with demonstrate and protest and strike. We should have more of that, but not based on our own interests. When people strike, unless it's a general strike, and we do not see many of them, we should have more general strikes. That I do believe they should, really strong general strikes. But again, not only striking against something, but also striking for something. That's the point. Not only against something. That should be more of that. But there is the need to have organizations to be organized and united and discuss openly the problems. We all have biases. We all are affected by prejudices. So when we sit at the table to discuss a problem and the solutions, we need to be open. We cannot try to impose anything. It has to be discussed until it's clear for everyone what could be done, what is feasible, what is not. It's not just because it looks nice ideologically or in paper. That's not the point. It has to be realistic. So, because ideas by themselves are not, they belong to a different realm. So that the ideas do not belong to, they don't belong to the real world, you know. They belong to the virtual world. So we have to use them. They are important. They are powerful. But they need to be translated into reality. As material realities. And that's where we need to have the values that need to match. We cannot have values in one side, values and principles in one side, for the weekend, for example, or for church, or for some charity purposes, you know, some philanthropic activities. No, it has to be in our daily lives, in our daily activities, the principles and values. And that's why one of the reasons why demonstrating these days is ineffective, because it doesn't change our reality. You know, We still have to work under a system, by the rules of a system, which is oppressive, which is manipulating us in so many ways. And I mean, so we demonstrate, and so what? If we do not have any political agency, as I say so often, we can discuss. We can be very smart discussing, but it doesn't mean. I mean, we can oppose. We can say, oh, we can debunk, and make them naked into in front of us. But there is still. First, there are many areas of our society, of our capitalistic society, class-based society, imperialistic society. Okay, this is what we have. If we agree with that, it's fine. The problem is that the other ones that don't agree with it have to live under the same system. Because they do not have alternatives, and that's why in order to find an alternative we need to understand that for example, the financial system, first of all, financial system and banking system is not the same thing, but okay, they are correlated, but this is crucial in a society based on capitalism. So, who creates money? Who allocates them? Who has the power to allocate the money, to pick and choose which are the ones that are going to have the money? For what purposes? Why do we need capital markets and financial markets? Why do we need that? Because you will get an answer, and the answer is people will say to you that it makes investing and the economic development much more. It is good for everybody. No, that's a lie. It's not necessary. Money should be a public good and a public monopoly. That's it. Not a private one. Money should never be for profit. Money should be a medium of exchange. And and an accounting for fiscal purposes. The money used for profit and paying interest that so many people, middle class and lower classes, believing that it's fair to pay interest, the ones that are being squeezed, that are being enslaved by debt and bad credit card payments, to enrich people that do nothing. They don't produce anything. They use a medium of exchange as a tool to enslave people and to become filthy rich and control society. And people, just believe, okay, public banking sucks because public banking is ineffective, that people don't want to do anything. No, banking should be boring, should be a boring activity, as it used to be, by the way. And banking should be about, it is the financing, the role to finance the economic activities belongs to the state. It doesn't mean that we do not have private enterprises, of a market economy. We can have a market economy. We can even have profits and some private wealth, but controlled and limited with a ceiling. Otherwise, if we allow people to become filthy rich, if the gap, and they will destroy any vestige of democracy, they will hijack it. They will hijack the legal systems, all the laws, the different laws, private law, civil law, whatever law, it will be hijacked in order to serve the interests of the few. And this is basic. And either we understand it beyond the left-right divide, beyond the idea that if you think about and analyze these problems and try to identify them and understand them, you are already a dangerous lefty, because you want to destroy capitalism as if capitalism is a model that is that is sucking the blood of the working class. Especially this form of capitalism. Because while capitalism is in the productive phase, which means industrial capitalism, that is transforming, that is using the industry to transform raw materials and resources into products, goods and services, it creates jobs, it's still exploitative, it's still making people filthy rich, but at least it's producing some things that can be useful, not only useful things, but also useful things for society. But when capitalism and it always mutates, it always becomes this it always the financial capitalism always comes to control the real economy. And this is not just that's when rent-seekism, rent-seekism becomes more important than producing and producing goods and services. And that's why capitalism is always is a system that always creates inequality. It always needs to expand. Therefore, it is always imperialist, and it needs to find new markets. It needs to find new hosts. It is parasitic. It is intrinsically parasitic. So it doesn't matter. It always starts to in the phase that people have opportunities, so there is innovation. There's a lot of productivity, and because people are competing for a place to become wealthy, and so they become wealthy by being entrepreneurships, by using ingenuity and technological innovation in order to create new products and services and devices and whatever that they can sell in the market, and if possible grow exponentially and become rich. So this is when capitalism is in the phase of producing wealth through accumulating wealth and capital by using capital in a productive way. But that phase always mutates into the financial phase, where the financial sector and the banking sector takes over, becomes the force, the major force of the economy. They become the rent-seeking activity becomes the major force of the economy. And this is what we have, and most people do not understand it. And this point is important to understand. That we live in a society, this has nothing to do, I'm not talking about conspiracy theories or any kind of I'm not talking about the influence of secret societies, and I'm not talking about that. That's not the point of my analysis. The point of my analysis is just go through the reality of our socio-political and economic system, and understand how it functions. Who is controlling the wealth? That is, whom is controlling the wealth and the assets, the real assets, the land, the buildings, the resources. Why they do control it? Why do we do not understand that we don't need them? They are impoverishing us. They are not really creating any wealth, real wealth. They are concentrating the real wealth in their hands everywhere in the world by using financial instruments and mechanisms that have nothing to do with producing anything, but about creating mechanisms of rent-seeking, parasitic capitalism, financial parasitic capitalism, imperialistic, which needs to be imperialistic because it needs to expand. That's exactly what we have, And this is very important. We should discuss it. We need to organize to understand it. We need to organize where does. I had another point to this conversation. The countries, the BRIC countries, okay? The BRIC countries and other economies that are now part of what we call multipolar order or multipolar world, the economy, all of them have a market economy. The capitalistic market economy. So capitalism is still what kind of order? They do not. I do not see. I see multipolarity to a certain extent with good eyes, because I do not want a world controlled by a single hegemonic power. I do not want a unipolar world. It's not about unipolarity. What I would like to see is a world where cooperation, where there is no supremacy, not any kind of supremacy, where the demos, understands that we should not fall for any nationalisms and the fake patriotism that especially glorifies the supremacy of our race or culture or national identity, or our economy, our political system, whatever it is. Because all systems that exist or will ever exist will have flaws. And even in spite that it seems that our system is very successful, it will be successful for a while in historic terms. So always think in terms of relative terms when you think about your country in relation to other countries. That just always think that we all are part of the same world. We need to cooperate. We need to make sure that all of us have our needs fulfilled. And we make sure that we can create wealth. What is wealth to start with? Wealth is not money, because money is a tool. Money is a political tool and it's a political tool that should be controlled by the state, and the state should be controlled by the demos. That's how it works. Because the state, for as long as our world is organized in countries, with borders identified, with a language, with a culture, with borders and everything else, and sovereign money, not the case of many countries, but there are a lot of countries that have sovereign money, which is part of the national identity, the national sovereignty. You cannot have sovereignty unless you have sovereign money. It's like the same thing that goes with food and even with certain technologies. So that's why cooperation is needed at an international level to build sovereignty. It's not about globalism. It is about internationalism. That we are all part and we need to cooperate, not in order to gain advantage, to gain competitive edge over others, to control their resources, but to make sure that we all are part of the human family. And instead of creating cleavages and build and dig trenches, we need to relativize our own culture. It doesn't mean that we should not proud of our cultures. It has nothing to do with that. It's just to do with principles and values. What kind of values and principles do we follow? This is all, everything is related to what I said, to how I started this conversation, because we do need to understand all these aspects interact with each other in order to, what are we demonstrating for? What do we want as a society and as a civilization and as a humanity? I mean, you know, this to me it's obvious that my culture is not better than any other culture. I mean, I haven't been born in America. I could probably be a proud boy. Who knows? I don't know. I cannot know that. But I hope that I know so many Americans that understand the problems with American culture. So I would also a culture and the supremacy and the exceptionalism and the American exception. By the way, I recommend the book by Aaron Good, So there is a. So I would like, I really would like to be part of that group, that dissent, that do not see any exception or exceptionalism in the American as Americans. They know they are not exceptional. They under that umbrella of exceptionalism, the American imperialists are responsible for lots of crimes against humanity and against nature and against civilization. You know? Because civilization is not about building great cities. I know civilization, it's about sedentarism, it's about the development of cities. But the true civilization is about enhancing the dignity of life, of human life and all life. So, and the capitalist order will never respect it, because it is psychopathic, it is narcissistic, it is megalomaniac, it attracts people with characteristics that they are too ambitious, they are too greedy, they want to control everything, and they don't care what kind of means do they need to use to achieve it. And we, I mean, are we so, I mean, we can be cynics and we can say that, okay, this is human nature, we cannot do better than this. There will be always twisted people, and it's true. There will always there will be always corruption, because the system is going to be corrupted and to mutate into some. Even if you create a perfect system, there is no perfect systems to create. There is only systems that require permanent vigilance. If you want, if we would want to have a system that is based on justice and trust, we need, and intellectual honesty, we need a permanent vigilance. We cannot allow. That's why democracy is important, is required. That's why one of the that's why the power. That's why I do not discuss. There is another point I want to make. I do not discuss class war as the working class against the rich class, because working class can be too narrow. So we are citizens, okay? And as citizens of a society or a civilization, we should not accept to be classified, to be put in shelves according to usually our profession, so our social status and our economic and financial status. All right? So, if we have citizens, we understand it. It doesn't care if we believe that, because these days many people do not see themselves as workers. I mean, it's a stupidity, I know. If you need to go out every day to earn money, to put food on the table and to keep a roof over your head, you are a worker. So that's what you are. But nonetheless, you might not see yourself as a worker because you don't work in a factory, or you are not a peasant, or you work you just work in the services sector. No, you might not see yourself as the concept of worker as it was in the 19th century, or in the half of the 20th century. That's why the word demos to me is more appealing to identify us as political beings, and that need to have political agency in order to avoid what happens if you leave the system unchecked, because then there are the opportunists, the psychopaths, and the sociopaths, megalomaniac, and narcissistic, to take over the system, because they do not care at all about the collective well-being. They can use the rhetoric and the demagoguery that makes it sound as if they want to they want to put order in the system because of whatever reason. They will say that this group or that group have destroyed, have corrupted the system, and we will put it back functioning for all of us. That's not what they want. That's not what they really do. They just do one thing. They manage. That's political management. They just make you believe. They just create the illusion that they are going to change. They are going to implement changes, and they might implement changes that they look like they are doing the right thing. But the results will tell you that your life is not going to improve. Because the main problem is about control. Who controls? Who controls what? Who controls the state? Who controls the financial system and the banking system? Who dictates where is the newly created money is allocated? Why? We should not understand. I mean, when people say, the problem is the Federal Reserve, or the problem is the central banks. Okay, I don't care if there is a central bank or if it's a national treasury. Maybe a central bank it's better. But the problem is not that. Who controls it and what purpose? We should not say that the problem is the central bank or the Federal Reserve. We don't solve anything. We don't understand the problem. It's always who controls it and for what purpose. And once you understand it, and once you understand who controls it, cui bono, and what is the purpose, what is the goal, then you can start to think about solutions. How can we then organize again in order to be able to We can use demonstrations, we can use protest and strikes, but how can we, what's the real purpose of it? We need to understand what kind of solution do we have, and how can we make it happen. There is the need of a revolution. It's not so because we need to be educated. I mean, the masses always mess up. You know why? Because if the people that is going to benefit of a certain change are not educated, or are not organized, or do not have a previous understanding of the causes and roots of the problems, and why are we investing in this change, what we want to achieve. If they do not have it doesn't need to be a full understanding, but they need to understand it in a way that they are not going to be easily manipulated to go back to defend their oppressors. Otherwise, we cannot achieve anything, because the people are just divided, can be divided in so many different groups with just little things which are important, of course. We all have our idiosyncrasies that we believe they are very important. So the education, and by education I mean the understanding of concepts and values, and how does complex system works, and how does propaganda works, the PR machinery works, how do the dominant narratives become how do the dominant narratives colonize our minds, how do we build our identity, why do we identify so much with capitalism, why do we think private property is such a huge thing, when we know that it can be taken away so easily. So we own a house or a property, we own real estate, we have paid for it, we have worked for it very hard, but it's ours. I mean, we have to pay taxes on it to start with, and sometimes very high taxes for modest possessions. But besides that, they can be taken away very easily, because again, you can say that the problem is, no, it's not the government, it's who controls the government. Why should the government be controlled by just a very few percentage of the population? Just a few on the top. Why should it be like that? So this is to me why, if we do not address the problems in a systemic way, that we understand the structural roots of the problems, we can demonstrate, we can protest, we can even strike, or even general strikes, which I agree with all of that, but in the end it is useless, because we do not have the critical mass sustained that needs time to be built because it has to be a social process and a cultural process. I mean, it has to be a process of change within our own brains, in our own belief systems, ideological and belief systems. And that change requires consciousness. You need to develop consciousness. And that only happens if we together really based on intellectual honesty, we really try to discuss the roots of the problems and why can we come up with solutions. What kind of society and civilization should we build that is not discussed by the people, by the countries and the people that belong to the BRICS, or by other people that they might not be, that belong to the so-called global south. So the global south, or the global majority, that includes countries everywhere in the north hemisphere and the south hemisphere, they should reflect the peoples of these countries, or we as human beings. What kind of society do we want? What kind of civilization do we want? In order that we'll be able to cooperate and not think about taking advantage of each other in our own countries. Because if we have cultures and societies and economic systems that we already see it's normal, it has been normalized and naturalized, that I can use my fellow citizens, I can exploit them, I can take advantage of them, if I already have it ingrained, if it already is part of my cultural identity, so that is already, how can I expect to not have it at the international level? So this is a lot to chew, to reflect about. I am going to end this conversation. I'm pretty close to where I have my motorbike, and that's it for today. Thank you for listening.